Franklin stands at the window, breathing cold glass. Paris, 1782. His hand grips a creased letter like it could slip away if he lets up for a second. Corsican street noise leaks in. Footsteps, wheels, some merchant shot. But the real noise is in his head. Yesterday the British threatened to walk out, scrap the peace deal. The whole American gamble runs on a razor edge. A clumsy phrase or wrong handshake could sink it, waste years, drag the colonies back into war. The room feels small. Everything waits, tight and brittle, for the next move at those polished tables. By the end of 1782, both sides were bled out. Nothing was locked up yet. American independence dangled in reach, but nobody dared call it definite. Behind closed doors, the fighting didn't stop. One slip at the negotiating table could wipe out years of sacrifice. Franklin, John Jay, John Adams, this was their hardest field. The stakes matched Yorktown and Saratoga, but the enemy was subtler. Screw up here, and the whole revolution risked collapse. Even worse, their European allies might turn on each other, and then everything falls apart. Paris never did hand out peace on a silver platter. The Americans showed up thinking it was just them and the Brits, but the French and Spanish crowded in, both with their own wish lists. Vergennes, the French foreign minister, wanted to keep Britain down, but didn't want the Americans turning into the next powerhouse. Spain circled around Gibraltar and eyed western lands, always hungry. Britain wanted to walk away without looking whipped. Too many hands grabbed at the map. Word traveled fast. Alliances shifted. Nothing stayed locked down for long. Britain was barely holding it together. Ministries collapsed. War hawks and peacemen fought each other in back rooms. King George III dug in his heels. He couldn't stomach giving the colonies their freedom. British diplomats in Paris sent home frantic updates, never sure if the orders they had would last the week. The Americans sat across from men who might be sacked or summoned back to London before talks even finished. No one could promise which way the wind would blow. The Americans cut France out and went straight to Britain. Jay and Adams didn't trust the French to have their backs, figured they'd sell out American claims if it helped them. So behind closed doors they pushed the British for total independence. Wide borders, the works, high-stakes move. If word got out, France and Spain could walk, and the Americans would be left stranded if the British deal soured. The real fight sat right there on the map. Britain tried to lock the country to the coast, keep it narrow and weak. Jay and Adams didn't buy it. They wanted the border dragged west, straight to the Mississippi. Nobody budged. Days of blunt talk and finger stabbing at the boundaries, it almost tore the whole treaty apart. Here's the other snag. What to do about the people who'd backed the crown? Britain wanted their Loyalists paid back for property Americans had seized. They insisted Loyalists must get to return home. American delegates bristled. They remembered violence, old feuds, neighbors turned enemy. Nobody budged. Meanwhile, British creditors still wanted their money from debts run up before the war. Those talks tangled into knots fast. What looked like paperwork was a real powder keg. Every page felt personal, honor for one side, betrayal for the other. Even the throwaway clauses got fought over like family secrets. Franklin didn't waste moves. He worked the French rooms, keeping them sweet, while leaning hard on the Brits for whatever edge he could force. Every phrase, tightrope, straight enough that you'd believe him, slippery enough he could pivot. Out west and to the north, the futures of American settlers and native nations got tossed around on the bargaining table, mostly without a say from the people whose lives would change. Winter 1782 turned sour. Talks freeze up, tempers snap, and sometimes everyone just leaves. No one trusts the deal will stick. Word creeps through Paris. Maybe the fighting starts up again. Things look grim in the American camp. Every time a deal falls apart, you feel it. The risk that this whole thing blows up. The country might crack. Friends might ditch us, and Britain waits hungry, just off stage. Franklin didn't lose his head. Even when things got ugly, he kept it steady. Quiet, stubborn, hard to rattle. He calmed the room, kept people from tearing each other apart, made sure no one forgot the cost if they screwed this up. He'd lean on his dry humor, push for a deal when it made sense, but never let the big stuff slide. He could wait you out, talk circles around you, see 5 steps ahead. In those stretches, that mind of his was worth more than every musket or cannon at Yorktown. November 1782, things cracked open. The British had been hammered, bled dry, finally caved independence for the Americans, plus borders that almost nobody expected. The Americans didn't want to, but agreed. Protection for Loyalists, debts repaid. Just months before, peace was a pipe dream. Now they had something that almost held together. The impossible got real fast. September 3rd, 1783. Inside the Hotel d'York, not a battlefield, just a thick mahogany table and diplomats hunched over paper. They signed the Treaty of Paris. That's the day America became an independent country, both in law and on parchment. The treaty drew lines on maps, spelled out fishing rights, and tried messily to bury the old grudges. No guns, just ink and signatures. A new era began there. Street parties and church bells couldn't patch everything up. Loyalists got kicked out or squeezed until they left, scrapping for scraps somewhere else. Old debts didn't vanish, they hung around. Courtrooms thick with argument for years. Native nations got shut out, no seat at the table, but their land was fair game as maps got redrawn, with signatures barely dry. Resentment still festered underneath. The fighting was over. The United States stayed together, scarred but standing. The Treaty of Paris wasn't just about muskets and militia. Paper and argument beat bayonets in the end. The country rested on a handful of stubborn, sharp-tongued men thrashing out deals while the rest of the world kept score. Franklin, Adams, Jay holed up in Europe, sorting through British pride, French schemes, Spanish stalling. Months dragged on, late 1782 into 1783, nerves raw, future uncertain. The United States took form not from grand speeches, but careful lines on parchment. America's bones were set in negotiation, not gunfire. The Treaty of Paris sat like a hinge, ready to snap. Nothing guaranteed the Americans would get a damn thing except stubborn nerve and sharp negotiation. Independence was still just a maybe until some tired men in powdered wigs wore each other down behind locked doors. In the end, nobody won on the field alone. Most of it played out in cramped rooms, words hanging heavy until the thing finally tipped.